Hey guys, welcome back to the First Methodist podcast. We are here with Ronald from Woody's House for Veterans. Ronald, how are you?
If I was any better, I don't know what I'd do with myself, Corey. How about
That's a
yourself?
great answer.
Yeah.
I love it. So you asked me to call you Doc.
Yeah, that's what everybody, most people don't know my real name.
All right.
Yeah.
So from now on, we'll just call you Doc.
That'd be good. I'm just going to call you Corey.
And you are a doctor, aren't you?
Yeah.
Wow.
A degree in psychology and a master's in addiction, addictive disease disorders.
Yeah.
Shouldn't say a master's in addiction. That sounds like I'm an expert at getting loaded. Yeah.
Sounds like there could be a history there.
Yeah. That's
No.
a different day, different story. Yeah.
Nice. Well, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started into Woody's House for Veterans.
Okay. I'll give you a brief history on me.
Okay.
Originally from South Carolina, moved here in 92. My other life, I was in men's clothing business for 19 years. And talking about the addiction, I am a recovering addict. And whenever I was getting in recovery, volunteering, helping others, and I just got the bug. And a lot of people that believed in me way more than I believed in myself encouraged me. And then I got to thinking, I'd like to do this. And checked into some schools, went back to school several years later. I was 37 when I went back to graduate school, which is kind of scary. But moved here to finish that. And God's plan and my plan was way different because I was going to get my degree and move back.
Mm-hmm.
And just things started falling in place. And here I am. But that's the short of it. I guess the segue into Woody's. Woody was my daddy, Harold Woodrow Key.
Yeah.
I was one of three boys, and Daddy was one of 15 kids, sharecroppers.
Oh, wow.
Yep. And my mother's, it is kind of a cool story. My mother's father owned the farm. So my dad's family worked for my mother's family. So Daddy literally married a farmer's daughter, So I think it's the best gig he ever had. But
He's the star of every country song.
that's right. Yeah, that's right. But he was a World War II veteran, medic in North Africa and Italy for 4 years. And I don't know how much you're interested or who's listening is interested in military history, but World War II's greatest generation, all that, but it was one of the most brutal ever. And being a medic, he was in a MASH unit, and so to set up surgical hospitals. Well, for every hospital, you got to have a morgue too.
Yeah.
So for 4 continuous years, he saw either death or dismemberment, and he only ever talked about it 3 times that I remember in my lifetime. I was 47 when he died, and but one of the big things about Woody's going, there was 2 guys getting Woody's going. There was 2 guys that showed up at his viewing that said, "You must be Ronnie." And I haven't been called Ronnie since I was, knee-high to a grasshopper. I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Well, your dad, talked often of you." And said, "Your dad was a good soldier." And me not being a veteran, I didn't realize how much of a compliment. That's about as good as it gets. Is a good soldier.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got home, and one of my brothers was living, and my mom was living. I said, "Who were those guys?" They didn't know either. They had stayed in touch via regular phone for 52 years.
Wow.
And I still can't fathom that bond.
Mm-hmm.
And then 3 years later, on New Year's Day of 2000, while everybody's worried about Y2K and the computers, I had a heart attack.
Oh.
So it all kind of came together that Daddy passing, meeting those guys. And if you ever want to have a spiritual moment, have a heart attack. I mean, it is very spiritual.
I'm sure.
Yeah, you beg and please, and then you're saying thank you. Well, hopefully you got a chance to say thank you.
Yeah.
But Dean Robinson, who was the chief of staff at the VA, saw him in a meeting one time, and I said, "Is there anything y'all need?" I didn't know where it's volunteer. It's just a throw it out there question.
Mm-hmm.
And we're licensed as a community residential center, which is same licensure standards as assisted living. And the nearest one was over an hour away. And he said, we could use something like that. So I talked to a few people, and it happened. And we treat chronically mentally ill and our homeless veterans. We basically treat what people are leery of, scared of, because there's still so much stigma and myths out there about homelessness and mentally ill. That's my people.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and Daddy taught me a lot about that. Is just by talking about who they tried to save.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like I said, the rest is history. And this month, actually, is 20 years we've been open.
Goodness.
Yeah.
And so you started Woody's Home for Housing, catered mostly to these people because of the influence your dad had?
Yeah, Dad, and then the bond that he had with those other two guys.
Mm.
And then, wasn't trying to be funny at all. Something happened in a heart attack at my age, and I had two small kids that I never considered myself a taker until then. And I got reflecting, and what I saw as being given to me is a lot of it I thought I deserved. And it was time for me to look outward and reach out to those less fortunate than me. And then it gets in your blood. And, you know, I quit 3 or 4 times a year, but as long as it's got Dad's name on it, you know, I won't.
Yeah, absolutely. So did your dad talk about mental illness in the military even during World War II? Or?
No, they back then, PTSD technically didn't exist.
Yeah.
They called it, shell shock. It's kind of like, you may be too young, but the older generation, older than me, they used to, anytime there's mental illness, they said, you know, they had a nervous breakdown, which is a catch-all.
Yeah.
And so is shell shock. If somebody went over there one way and came back a different way, whether it was anxious, nervous, hallucinations, all the things, traditional PTSD, they, you know, until, I think it was late 80s, 70s, early 80s before the VA recognized PTSD.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It gave it, acknowledged that it was caused by war. Same thing that they're going through now with the burn pits and the cancer from Agent Orange. It did it until it did.
Yeah.
So it's but yeah, so he didn't talk about it directly, but he talked about so-and-so died, or he's drank real bad ever since he got back from the war. And then you think about that generation, he got back 7, 8 years later was Korea. Shortly after that was Vietnam. And then in the 90s, you know, we started back over to the Mideast. So he saw a lot of wars, yeah. And he was born in 1919, which World War I was going on. So there was a lot of war during his lifetime. That the only time he had to serve was World War I, II.
Goodness. But was he active in the military all the way up? Was that Desert Storm?
No, he was World War II.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Goodness. That's an impressive legacy for sure.
It's one that's kind of hard to live up to. But the thing is teachings were more by being modeled. Let's say you only talked about it 3 times. And I remember Mom said, because I've always been a who, what, when, where, why. And I remember her warning me. I had a brother killed when I was 2.5 on a bicycle. And the 2 things in the house, you didn't ask about Eugene. You let Daddy talk about Eugene if you wanted to. You didn't ask about the war, but you let Daddy talk about it if you wanted to. And later on in life, I realized how scarred he was from that. I even had people say after Eugene died, my oldest brother, I wish you'd known your dad before Eugene got killed. Yeah. So it was. Yeah.
Wow.
He was an interesting man. Fascinating man. He was rough around the edges. I mean, you weren't a 15, you know, chicken neck might be the best thing you had that day to eat. Yeah. And but he's very, very spiritual man. He died deacon emeritus at a little country church. Yeah.
Oh wow, that's awesome. So did your dad's faith impact your life as far as like your walk with the Lord?
Yeah. Wow. Well, it impacted my life and my butt. You know, yeah, boy. Yeah.
That love, grace, and accountability.
Oh, yeah, that's right. The accountability always got me. But yeah, And actually, mother's side of the family, the church we went to back in South Carolina, had 5 founding charter members, and 2 of them were her uncles, and 1 was her dad. So out of the 5, there was the 3 Siglers.
Wow.
So yeah, we got indoor plumbing in '61.
Ooh.
But you know what? You being a pastor, it was amazing how few people went out in the middle of the service when you had an outhouse as compared to indoor plumbing. Yeah.
Yeah. Guess it's a little bit more
I can hold it for a little while. Yeah.
A little bit more of a deterrent whenever it's an outhouse.
Yeah.
And I'm not a pastor, by the way. Just
you're
for
not?
clarification. No, sir.
You just hanging around?
Okay. Just one of the locals.
Okay.
Yeah. No, director of communications, but
okay.
That's what it is.
That's ministry. It's all ministry. Yeah.
Just a bit.
Yeah.
But so Woody's House for Veterans getting started here in Shreveport. What did that look like?
Total chaos. Everybody thought it was a great idea, but it's the whole thing about rubber meets the road.
What was the pitch for the idea whenever it got started?
Fortunately, Dr. Robinson knew some people. We started out with, we're almost like a church, a bunch of committees. And a year later, we're meeting for a bunch of committees, And I knew either the opportunity or the calling or whatever it was. And we had some of the who's who, but they wanted to break off into subcommittees and stuff. And the president of a local bank pulled me aside and he said, "I'm tired of this. You want to build it or not?" I'm like, "I'm just playing along with y'all to get it done." Yeah. And we went in together on the real estate. And that was the clinical part. He was mainly the funding part. And then I brought him out in 2011. But it was utter chaos because I've worked in hospitals before, psych hospitals, but never worked for or run a nonprofit. And it's a totally different animal.
Man,
but,
I can't imagine.
Yeah, and I'm not real good with politics, and I'm more used to getting stuff done. And one of the great things Dr. Robinson did tell me, he said, "Ronald, your biggest problem is going to be the VA moves at the speed of a glacier unless we need something." And it's the truth. I mean, it's a simple ask can be the act of Congress. You got to check with a different department and all that stuff. And doesn't always work really well in psychiatry. I mean, you have a lot of emergencies.
So when you got your doctorate, were you thinking about Woody's Home for Veterans when you started?
Not at all. Actually, I started out, I wanted to work just with alcoholics and addicts. Then in a short period of time, I realized I'm going to starve to death because, well, either they don't have money, they don't show up for the appointments, or can't make their copay. And when you got a loving and giving heart, you try to fight it. So that's more when I went back to get more into mental health because, had a family. And everybody appreciates what you do, but they're not going to pay your bills for you. And it's the best thing I ever did because they're so enmeshed, addiction and psychology, but they're also separate. So it opened up some avenues for me both ways to look into, the dichotomy of an addict, the way they think, but also see if there's some underlying psychiatric issues prior to the use. If they start out as a casual user or they came from a history of schizophrenia, bipolar in the family, and they drank a drug to feel normal. And that kind of stuff's always fascinated me.
And so I guess did you practice for a while before Woody's?
I did. Well, I worked 6 years in hospitals.
Okay.
Then I went in private practice in 2000. And technically I still am. I still carry half a load. I've been trying to retire for 5 years. But Woody's has been the constant since we started forming all this and getting it together, bought the property in 2002. But did not admit our first resident to August 2003. So that's why I say 20 years is when we took our first guy in.
Goodness. And so like the pieces as far as putting the puzzle of Woody's together was getting the real estate so you could have like a hub for your practice. And then you were the element of the actual psychiatric help that these guys would need.
Now, actually, the VA I cannot, I don't think I have to say this correctly. I cannot treat them by being the founder and have my office there. I had to still rent a separate location because conflict of interest by being an owner and a board member, blah, 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 and all that. Mm-hmm. But I was strongly urged to visit with them often as I could. And so I strongly visit with them a lot.
Understood.
In fact, that's where, you called me a few minutes ago, whenever we're talking about the location, and that's where I was at Woody's then, visiting with some of the guys. Yeah.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Sound like a good place to be.
Yeah. It's a safe place.
Yeah. So can you let us know, about what Woody's looks like from a day-to-day perspective, like where it's at, how it's grown from where it was in the beginning to where it is? Well,
currently now. We have 14 residents. We have 2 homes.
Okay.
Really complicated, house 1 and house 2. So, and all the guys are paranoid schizophrenic, bipolar with psychosis, PTSD, combination thereof. And the primary diagnosis for community residential centers has to be mental illness. Now, you can have a secondary diagnosis, anything from Parkinson's, heart issues, or whatever. We've had 5 people die natural deaths there over a 20-year period. And no, we're not killing them. We got a lot of the older guys. And like I said, by taking some medical issues in, some of them are complicated when they get there. But one of the things that is touching, 2 of them were in hospice, and they were offered hospice, and the VA does do home hospice, and they said they wanted to come home, and that's really warm feeling, because VA was going to pay for wherever they went.
Yeah.
But they want to come home, and because there's 3 kind of residents we get: the one that has no family, the one that has a family but the family can't handle them, or a third one's the family stole all their money and all the drugs, and it's protect them from their family while they're doing it. And I hate to mention that the third one is this, but it's true.
Yeah.
They're checked.
Yeah. Ugh, that's rough to hear about.
Yeah.
So what was it like when you got the first patient?
I don't know who was scared the most. Like I said, it's a different animal. And one of the toughest transitions was working with the VA. Because working in hospitals, I mean, you start discharge planning on the day you admit them. You got these groups, organizations, everything you lined out, and there's so much organization to it. But with us doing the housing and them doing the clinical, but we have to distribute meds, like if you came in, you would never, Woody's covers everything, getting you to your appointments, food, shelter, clothing. The only thing we don't provide, if they smoke, they go buy their own cigarettes. If they drink sodas, they go buy their own sodas for one reason. You got this guy who wants cherry Coke, and this one that wants this one wants 4 cases, this one wants 2, and I was like, no, I can't do this.
Get the one guy who says I only drink Dublin Dr. Pepper.
Yeah. I wanted diet. But you get to see a lot of changed lives, and it's been a kind of a moving thing as times have changed. Like for years, I tried to get a Bible study there, and everybody thought it was a great idea, but somebody pinned the tail on the donkey. It was hard. And now every Tuesday, we've got a pastor that is a veteran that comes every Tuesday at 1 and does, a Bible study with him. And it's a veteran-oriented Bible study.
That's great.
Yeah. I didn't know those types existed. And even their Bible, they have assignments, and this like 2-page, fill in the blanks. But at the end of it, they get a certificate, but they get this beautiful Bible with the American flag on it. Yeah.
Wow. And the pastor supplies that for them?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's special.
Yeah.
So Woody's partners with the VA. So Woody's is basically the housing portion, and then the VA comes in.
Yeah, but we have no partnership, no contract. It's a mutual admiration and disrespect for each other.
I can't imagine why.
Yeah. But I mean, there's like, I just left one of the social workers, and she is just an angel. Usually whenever we do disagree, we're pulling in the same direction.
Yeah.
Sometimes it has to do with policies, procedures, protocol. And like I said, that's my weakness. This guy's hurting now. Let's help him. And then, well, we got to go through these stages of bureaucracy.
Yeah. Sounds a lot like the church.
I never thought about it that way, but it really is. Yeah.
Bunch of different people
There's
going
no
in different
one
directions.
that has more committees in a church. Yeah. They have the committee of committees. Yeah.
No comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, a bunch of different people all going in somewhat different directions, but pulling the same overall.
Well, at the end of the day, if you're not winning souls, you swimming. Well, I won't go there either.
So how do y'all find guys right now?
The VA refers all our, well, I say that we work together because a lot of them come through the VA, but sometimes we get a cold call and they meet our criteria, but then we have to check with the VA. See, the VA will do all the background checks, make sure they got the VA benefits, because we've been blessed to not have to treat it. When I say, I'll finish the statement, to not have to take anyone from the outside in, meaning just someone who's mentally ill, because it is a certain brotherhood they have. And at times it's been financially difficult by not taking any non-veterans. But like I said, after what some of them have been through, we want to keep it exclusively veterans. And we don't take women for two. Well, obvious reason is, you can have 10 men and one woman, and the men go crazy. You can have 10 women and one guy, and they're like, who's the dude? I mean, it's like, it's a lot different. And the VA actually approached us. We were open to taking women, but in a separate location. And we asked for a certain amount. We wanted 6 residents. I wanted 6 residents just because of the dynamics, them being able to help and us being able to help them, but them to have some, they can talk about their history. Now, I can't talk about being a woman. I can't talk about being a veteran. Yeah. So what we requested was 6, and the VA would not at that time would not commit to it. Yeah. And the board wouldn't commit to doing it without, that guarantee.
Yeah. So you're saying having the men and women working together, or I guess in the same situation, would be just a shared experience and just different perspectives?
A lot's got to do, well, anybody knows about men and women, how we're different, but you put schizophrenia and men and women and different together, it's just not a good thing.
That makes
it's tough enough. Yeah.
So is that most of what y'all are dealing with the veteran community that come out or at Woody's, and they're dealing with schizophrenia, or
those 3 pretty much: schizophrenia, bipolar, and PTSD. Now some will be depressed, but it's associated with the schizophrenia, and it makes for some great conversations.
I'm sure.
Yeah. I've been asked to be a campaign manager for someone running for president. I've seen an imaginary billy goat that it was white, name was Billy, appropriately, and had a goatee, and that's how I was able to recognize him, sitting in a blue velvet chair that was described to me.
Did you tell him about Miss Kitty?
No, I think he had no trouble. I had a gentleman that invented the rocket engine, not to be confused with the jet engine. And one of the strangest questions I've ever been asked, and I bet you never been asked this: do you dream in black and white or Technicolor?
Color.
Okay. But I had a veteran ask me that, and I'm like, I've never thought about that. So it's like, where do these thoughts, come from? But I had a former assistant editor of a Virginia Beach newspaper. I've got a major there now, critical care nurse. So it's pretty much the gambit, but the blessings and rewards far outweigh the difficulties. Yeah.
So does most of that stuff, the bipolar, PTSD, and all that, come from the war?
Some we do, whether it was combat related or not. Some are predisposed from genetics, And it's according to how desperate we need soldiers as to how well they're screened. If it's wartime, I mean, you're breathing, will take you. I think today it's much, much tougher to get in to the service. But it's kind of just roll the dice. But now a lot is combat related, but then again, a lot has to do with genetics. I had a guy that was a programmer on the USS Enterprise in the 80s that had a closed head injury while aboard. And that complicated things, and that's when his schizophrenia manifested itself. And some people, I had a professor tell me one time, he said, the only difference between insanity and sanity is the depth of a piano wire. And there's a lot of, but think about like Van Gogh versus Musk. Van Gogh went off the deep end. Musk is a genius. Yeah. So it's kind of, Mozart, some of the great masters, it's just.
It's that little blend of, insanity and creativity.
Yeah. I've never been confused with a genius.
Oh, good.
I have been confused though.
I doubt it.
Something I want to show you.
Okay.
That I think surprised the people watching and listening is this has a May 1st, 2023. Well, we've been blessed to be able to provide to our veterans in the 20 years.
So as of May 1st, 2023, Woody's Home for Veterans has provided 405,115 total meals served, 80,966 nights of lodging, and 302,936 employee hours in the service of veterans. Wow.
That's that what I'm most proud of about that is it started as a simple idea. And it literally takes, a community, because I certainly didn't do that.
That's just incredible to think that it all came from, your dad's impact that you had on your life. And then obviously your willingness to follow the call to do something to serve.
You see, the willingness or lack of insight. But it's the greatest blessing besides my kids.
Yeah. I'm sure a lot of guys are very appreciative that you took up the mantle to do something like this.
Some of them are, yeah.
Are there any, I know there's confidentiality as far as, the people you've worked with, but are there any testimonies or guys you've gotten to know that you can talk about?
Oh, I don't disclose their names. Yeah. It's, there's so many stories from some of the hallucinations, but seeing some people, I've got a cross. I kind of collect them. Well, I don't know if I got about 10 crosses, but I had one that the assistant editor of the Norfolk, Virginia Beach area newspaper, he had social anxiety, and he was a member of the Episcopalian church, so he wouldn't attend. So they would come up, talk to him, and he wanted to be whatever Episcopalians do. And I'm not being smart. I don't know if it's sprinkle baptized, whatever. And a deacon and a pastor come over, and the cross was probably about as tall as the mic stand there. And they blessed it, or whatever it was ordained, for lack of a better term. But his family gave that to me upon his death.
Oh, wow.
And those little things like that. And then I rediscovered some stuff that he had. I've got his World War II Bible. And both you and Meredith both have heard about, the only thing that saved his life was he was shot in the chest and the Bible stopped the bullet. I never really knew if those Bibles existed or not. And it's been in the last 10 years I found it. And what was interesting is President Roosevelt is what he wrote in the front of it. And then they had a chaplain in the back. But it was all about faith and God. And for your fellow man and stuff. And and it was kind of refreshing that was not controversial in any way.
Yeah.
It's God, family, and country. Boom. And I never thought that I would see in my lifetime the way I was raised be so ostracized now. And that's not complicated. We as a society have become complicated. And that's all I'm going to say about that, or I get on a rant.
Could turn into a 4-hour podcast.
That's right, yeah.
Give us all the education of what we need to know.
Yeah, if I start doing that with my leg, yeah, you need to cut away or do something. Yeah.
Getting worked out.
Yeah, that's right.
But you said that Woody's is a faith-based organization?
Yeah. A lot of that is, well, I believe in, I'm a believer and big proponent of prayer, but also a tribute to Daddy, you know. And see, he had, well, I didn't bring this up. It was kind of cool. He had a 7th grade education. There were 11 boys and 4 girls. The boys went until the 7th grade, reading, writing, arithmetic. Now, the girls didn't get to finish high school because Granddaddy Key didn't know how to stop having kids, but he figured out a woman was going to have it tougher. And back then it was 11 grades versus 12.
Yeah.
But so he did quite well because once he tested whatever aptitude tests and stuff, he was assigned to University of Virginia Medical Center with a 7th grade education.
Goodness.
So the old boy he was pretty smart, I think. You know?
Yeah. Sounds like it.
Yeah.
So do you get to bring up Christ to the soldiers you work
carefully.
with? Are they usually receptive? Or?
Yeah.
That's good.
And I bring it, even with my personal patients. And they know the model I use in my private practice is, mind, body, and spirit. That if we don't keep them, balanced. I mean, it's like if you broke your arm. Do you have children?
Yes, sir.
Okay, if your child broke your arm, you're not going to pray about it. You're going to take him to the ER. It's the same thing I tell them with a broken spirit. If you take your child to the ER with a broken arm, you got a broken heart, a broken soul. But something that can't hurt or can't be measured, it's harder to get some people to balance. So, and some of the guys, and some of it has to do with the paranoia and stuff, are woe unto me. So I always try to, I'll have them sometime write a gratitude list. And they've come from tough circumstances, but we're one of the few countries in the world to take care of our, I'm not going to say we take care of them well, but at least we take care of them. Look at the blessing. I mean, you do have health care, you do have a home, you got those things. So, I mean, so I try to talk to them, in that way. And like the Bible study we have on Tuesday is voluntary. It can be faith-based. It cannot be religiously based. I cannot make it a Methodist one or Episcopalian or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's not getting any better, unfortunately.
Yeah. So is it mostly a fight to keep faith involved in your practice for veterans? Like if the VA is going to be involved, or
no, as long as we keep it faith.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. It's like writing a grant. I did my internship for a 501c3 in Shreveport for 10 months. And I remember them, this has been, 30 years ago, missing out on a grant because they were founded in the 50s, and in their mission statement, Jesus Christ is mentioned. And the people who were granting the grant said, you can't say that, you can say faith. They didn't get the grant because they wouldn't change the mission statement, and I, applaud them for that. But just how it's gotten over the years, but in the 50s, if you said faith versus Jesus Christ, you were lightweight.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah.
I say that. I never lived in the 50s.
Yeah.
But
it wasn't that cool. I mean,
few things happen.
Yeah, wow, yeah. You should have been around late 60s, early 70s, yeah.
Oh, you have some stories about that?
Ooh, most of them I can remember, yeah. Yeah. That was, I wouldn't trade for anything in the world, but I would not wish it on anybody. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I remember we're the kids of the greatest generation. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot to live up to.
Yeah, they had some stories, yeah. That is one thing, though, Corey, that does concern me is the last couple of generations, we're getting so far away from honoring these guys, from love of country, love of faith. And I don't blame the younger generations. I think every generation wants their kids to have it better. And so I think somewhere along the way, faith and patriotism, and so many of these guys, like World War II and Vietnam, Korea, these weren't guys that volunteered to go fight wars.
Mm-hmm.
They were drafted.
Yeah.
And, but there was an honor to that too. You served your country.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't know I'd want to go, and you may have been a mama's boy, but if you got drafted, it was what your family did before you, and those kind of things. And I think the last big surge we had was after 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people signed up because we got punched in the face.
Mm-hmm.
And but just feeling it kind of slipping away. That's a great story, great histories, but it doesn't affect me. It's more than.
Mm-hmm.
And you're much younger than I. You probably see it even with your own generation.
I do. It's not as common to see. I mean, I grew up in a small town in Texas, and so patriotism and military service was a big part of the community.
Mm-hmm. Baseball. Yeah.
Amen. But coming to bigger cities, it was a shock just to see the change that's kind of taken place over the years. And so I don't know what it takes to get it back or what caused it to go away in the present. I know a lot of people have said
spoil, maybe.
Mm-hmm. What is it? Tough men create good times. Good times create soft men. Soft men create hard times.
Yeah,
and that's just that circle.
But I mean, and it's biblical. I mean, we're going to have trying times. We're going to have war to the end of time.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's definitely true.
Yep.
So what does Woody's need right now?
Oh, wow. Well, having 14 guys there, you pretty much need all the same stuff all the time. And that's everything from, if you think about what you do at your house on a grand scale, the same thing. I mean, everything from toilet paper to clothing to, if you're getting rid of getting a new washer and dryer, I mean, we've got 2 houses with both commercial kitchens, washers and dryers, microwaves, oscillating fans, paper plates. I mean, whatever literally you use at your home, we use. And then also financially, no matter how much you donate of paper products and all that kind of stuff, SWEPCO doesn't want me to send them paper products. And that's just a harsh reality, and nobody likes to talk about it. The same with the church.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they don't ask you to tithe or be a good steward of your washing machine. Yeah. So it's, and that is one of the probably going to get in trouble on this, but at 70 years old, doesn't matter, that's one of my biggest disappointments is how the faith community has not been involved. I've got basically 6 churches that are, I would say, actively involved. And I just, it gets back to the faith, family, and country. I figured every church around here would just, what can we do? And it hasn't been that way.
When you say not involved, is that more like they're not involved in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So no volunteers, no contributions?
Rarely, pretty much they like what we do, but it's gotten, I have to walk softly here. One of the things Daddy always said, I was raised Baptist. Mom and Dad often had some spirited discussions. And Mom, Dad was one of the founders of the church, really, really big on Lottie Moon Offering Fund. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, sir.
Daddy was real, real big. He raised a sharecropper. If his neighbor was hungry or naked or thirsty, why is he going to send it to Egypt? valid point on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
So I think sometimes that's what we get into as a faith community. We'll plant churches in Europe, and we got starving people in Shreveport.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll send it to, I'm not going to name any particular organizations, but some national organizations that raise millions and millions of dollars for veterans. But the ones we have here are homeless, mentally ill, may have served at Barksdale, are struggling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So more serving your local community instead of, yeah.
And I'm not knocking any of those stuff, but take care of our backyard before we take care of the world. And that's a personal belief of mine.
Yeah.
What's interesting of those 5 or 6 churches, all have a super strong local missions. Yeah, and we can do both. We can do local missions, and we can plant churches, and we need to spread the gospel all over the world. But again, it kind of goes back, like I said, Daddy said, if your neighbor is hungry, thirsty, or naked, and I can never argue with that. You know?
It's kind of hard to refute that one.
Yeah.
Man, so you've got 2 houses, and how many men living in these houses?
14.
14 men living in 2 houses.
Yeah.
How many bedrooms are these houses?
Let me think. You got me on the spot now. One's 3,800 square feet, and one's 35. It's old Highland neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
I know we got 5 bathrooms and 1 4 bathrooms. Another 7 in house 1, which has 9 residents, and then 7 in actually house 2.
Goodness.
Yeah.
7 men in each house.
Mm-hmm.
That's impressive.
It's interesting.
Yeah, interesting is probably one word for it.
That's right. Yeah.
Whole bunch of spirited discussions, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And what's the age range of most of the guys?
50 to about, I think the oldest one I got right now is late 70s. Now we did have, we just had one to move back to family in Dallas. He was 48. And I've had a couple younger than him. Most of the new admits, though, are Gulf War. But if you think about it, I never thought, somebody brought up, it's been a couple of years ago, it seemed like we always had something going on. And they said, you know, was it Enduring Freedom? Was that the first one, I think, in 90?
I think so.
I think that was, whatever one started in 90.
Yeah.
That's 33 years ago. Way longer than World War II, Korean and Vietnam. And we call them different things. It's Mideastern conflict or Afghan intervention or Vietnam police action, or you tell that to a guy getting shot at. It's not a war. Yeah.
That's tough. And so are there like...
And that's why I like people to come by and visit.
Yeah.
Is to, first of all, these guys want to be loved and respected just like the rest of us do. And if the toughest thing you do is come by and spend 30 minutes talking to these guys, and especially veterans visiting these guys, because they got their own lingo, yeah? And or cook 14 hamburgers and bring them by. And just set up, I love you, appreciate what you did. Drop them off, you know. But before you get scared of these guys, too busy, see them, because, you know, one of the first things I learned in graduate school, it was kind of funny that there's 2 kind of people in each therapy. The ones that's in therapy and the ones that's not. So sometimes we'll find out the stigma and all that kind of stuff, especially with guys on medication, is sometimes they'll be saner than you know, some of your relatives.
Yeah.
Or some of my relatives anyway. Yeah.
Definitely relative to the relatives.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with that many guys in these houses, are there plans, like when possible, to expand?
Yeah. We own 2 other lots, right? We want to buy the whole block. We bought about half of it. But one of the things I promised my mother, she died in 2011, 14 years, Dave died in 97, 14 years later. And she said, keep taking care of my boys. That's what she always called them. But, not to get all soft and touchy, but I promised her I would as long as I could. And one of the things I'm looking for now is someone to pass the torch, to teach and mentor, because what we're doing is never going to go away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, you got active military at Barstow right now. Some of them are going to need Woodies one day.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are going to be senators and all kind of stuff one day. But the given thing, if you believe in statistics, and statistics prove themselves right,
Yeah.
8% of the population is going to have mental illness. 8% of the population will serve in the military. Boom. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's, like I said, I've had grunt soldiers, and like I said, I got a major there right now.
Wow.
So it affects all.
Goodness. And so that plan of succession, like, is there a path?
Everybody runs when I bring that word up. Actually, I interviewed a guy before I got here.
Yeah.
He's got potential, but it's such a level of commitment that I didn't even understand. And you got to love. It's like if you call it a ministry. You got two choices, yes or no, but you only got one calling. So, and it's kind of thing. If first of all you don't love veterans, and have the patience of Job when you want to choke somebody, is and that takes. I certainly didn't write the book on it, and it's been challenging, and I'm not a veteran, so I think a veteran would even do it better than I did. But we kind of went to school on each other too.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But we are the second largest in Louisiana now, which I didn't even know that till the state board had told me. I don't know if that's because we did a good job or by default. Everybody else got out of it. But that's another thing is we're becoming a dinosaur. There was one in DeBerry, Texas that closed within the past year, and one in Longview, Texas that closed. So that means, as far as I know, Monroe is a small one, and then I'm not aware of anyone closer to Dallas. So the farther it is, the harder it is to stay connected. What you will see is only in towns around major VA hospitals and major populations.
Yeah.
And I personally, I'd like to see one in 60 miles south of us, 60 miles east, west, and north of us. Because family, especially important to their healing or their helping. And also, if we keep it local, hopefully we can get more individuals and churches and stuff involved.
Yeah. So what would happen if a place like Woody's closed?
Well, we're called by the VA the last house on the block. So it would be a street, institution, probably a nursing home, something like that.
So the guys that you serve now would either be on the street in nursing homes or...
And that's not trying to say, we certainly wouldn't put them on the street, but they do still have freedoms and rights, and you can't make them, well, you can judicially make them, but if they want, and some of our guys, probably 20%, very, very, very street savvy. They're as comfortable there as they are, sometimes more comfortable because we got rules.
Yeah.
But it's that's the sad thing, and one of my biggest concerns is that when he gets that far along in the process is going to take over, and then we start asking questions, what are we going to do to these guys? Well, the bell's fixing to ring, so it's not it's going to be more what could we have done to plan for this versus what are we going to do now?
Yeah. I'm sure you've gotten to see some growth in these guys.
Oh, yeah. Some of them, we're one step below or above, however how you want to look at it. A lot of the transitional housings, the guys can be employed. The best our guys ever do would be like volunteer at the VA to, we had one guy that the 48-year-old just told you about moved to Dallas. He was in charge of popcorn on first shift on the main lobby. He would wear a suit every day. He had all kind of lanyards and stuff. Our guys will not hold down jobs again. I mean, the mental illness is that critical. But I said volunteering or something, and that's where I get the lack of a better term, confused. Is that if that's the best they can do? What's the smallest amount we can do for them?
Yeah, it's a great word.
I mean, ride by and blow the horn and say appreciate y'all, or literally spend 5 minutes. A lady, a friend of mine, is retired from Home Depot. She was a manager, cooking them spaghetti, meatballs, homemade cake, and garlic bread, and just brought it over yesterday. You're cooking 14 guys, pretty big pot of spaghetti.
Yeah.
But if you could have seen the joy in her face bringing it, and then the guys know Miss Janet. I mean, that's what they call her, and help her bring it in. But just the exchange between the two, and it wasn't rocket science, it was spaghetti. Yeah.
Just something small.
Yeah.
I'm sure that meant a lot to them.
Yeah. And I think we need to teach our children. We started every other year we have a clay shoot at Las Palomas. It's our major fundraiser. But prior to that, we just started this weekend at Bass Pro. We have a 3-gun raffle. And it's always amazing to me, and like I said, always been who, what, when, why, is who does buy a raffle ticket and who doesn't. And looking at it more from a psychological standpoint, if you buy, you buy. If you don't, you don't. I don't know your finances.
Yeah.
Your thoughts about guns. But whenever it's parents with small children, the way they treat someone who's saying, would you like to support our local veterans, where they don't make eye contact, or, you meet the kids, whatever, or they teach their kids, we don't want to buy a raffle ticket, but we'd like to donate, maybe put $1 in. You're molding that child right then. That where you won't make eye contact is, or if you put $1 in, we need to help out others, not necessarily veterans, others. Yeah. So I think a lot of times as adults, we look back and realize all the teaching moments that we didn't take. It's
a great word.
Yeah.
To, I guess, be concerned.
I'm starting to sound like I'm getting old and wise. God, that's scary.
You're close.
Yeah. Yeah. The old I've got confirmed.
Oh, goodness. But that's great just to be aware of. Tell
me your thoughts on our Asian veteran and mentally ill. I put you on the hot seat.
Okay.
Veterans. You said you're from Texas, so you got to be part redneck.
Yeah. Thoroughbred.
Yeah.
No, but coming from a community, I grew up with friends who were, 3rd, 4th generation Marines, and there was, a great amount of respect for veterans, and I mean, it's just what I think of as, what you're supposed to do. Like, you see someone who's in your uniform, you say thank you for your service, or, if you're able to,
they
you
got
buy
the hat
meal.
on. Yeah, Vietnam veterans, Korean. Yeah.
You just do something to acknowledge them and make sure they know that you're aware of what they did, and there's just an appreciation. And both my grandfathers were in the military. One was a code breaker in the Navy, and the other one was a Army drill sergeant. And so.
That's not so cool. I mean, if you're one of the ones he's training, it's not so cool.
My mom was one of 3 girls who was raised by the Army drill sergeant.
I bet he was a lightweight with them 3 girls.
Not how they tell the stories.
Yeah, but guys and girls, dads and girls, we can be as tough as we want to be, and they own us.
Mom said that he definitely had a soft side. I don't know if I ever got to meet either of my grandfathers, but he was definitely carried the role of an Army drill sergeant in the house.
Well, we had one interested in, I guess, sidebar, but we have a family cemetery back home in South Carolina. But Dad's family came in Rikers Island or whatever. We came over it, and in Mayflower. Well, I guess it wasn't Rikers Island then. But and my mom's family came in Charleston, South Carolina. But in the family, and it's her side of the family that has a family cemetery. we've got someone who served from Revolutionary War up until World War One, including Spanish American and War of 1812.
Goodness.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the running joke in the family is we were great patriots or poor shots. Yeah, so, and that will always remain a debate. Yeah.
Oh goodness. But there is that. I don't know if other people in military families feel this as well. Just the, I don't want to say a sense of guilt, but maybe a missed opportunity of military service. And sometimes mom would say things like, they served in the military so we wouldn't have to experience something like that. But there's also the feeling of, and I don't know if you feel this, but the feeling that you should have done it because you see the value that.
Yeah. Well, I had mixed emotions, and my dad and I even talked about it. See, I graduated in 71, which was near the end of Vietnam. Mm-hmm. They couldn't take me that year because that's when I turned 18, but I was, still in school. Mm-hmm. In 72, my draft number was 250 something. And in 73, we withdrew and went to the lotto. But that was a tough period for our country. What Dad said was, "Son, it's your choice." And I thought he would, being the great patriot he was, said, you got to go serve. But he said, we've all figured this out. If we lose 1,000, we send 1,000. Mm. He said, we went over there to protect the motherland and make sure a foreign soldier's foot never stepped on the shores. He said, we have no purpose. Mm. And the boy didn't like Lyndon Johnson because, and that generation, even Korean War was different. They went over there to, I don't know if I can say this, but kick butt and take names. Mm-hmm. And one other thing he said is Germans spoke German and wore German uniforms, Japanese, same way. And in Vietnam, your ally and your enemy sometimes were family members. Mm. And we never fought in jungles before. But his thing was, if I'm going to send my son over there, make sure he's going to fight to win a war. Mm-hmm. There's times I look back, and I had 4 guys that went to high school. One was a year ahead of me, 3 were 2 years ahead of me, that died over there. They were drafted. But I had mixed emotions. Like I didn't really, I wasn't going to get married, get somebody pregnant to go to Canada. But or the combination thereof, and there's regrets. I think what I regret most would have been the experience and the brotherhood, which I didn't see till later. I mean, I knew about there was a brotherhood, but later, whenever Daddy's buddies at the funeral, but then I didn't want to die for political reasons.
Yeah. That is also a thing. Yeah. The wars right now, it seems like there's not a lot of.
We don't want to make people mad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But the only thing probably should say this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Like what we've got going on over in Russia and Ukraine now is, it reminds me of when I was young and the Vietnam War, is are we giving them enough to win or to not lose? And I think that's kind of an open-ended question, but with no air support, it makes you wonder. Mm-hmm. That's all I got to say about that.
We'll leave that there. But so how is First Methodist involved in Woody's Home for Veterans?
Well, first of all, Michelle is an angel.
Shout out Michelle.
Yep. And I don't want to praise her too much. She get a big head, but none of this would have happened without Michelle being involved. And then Pat got involved, and then just through context of years, I got to know some other people. But First Methodists believed in us, I think, before we believed in ourselves. And now they checked us, they vetted us. I mean, but one of the first times you gave money, it was a 10, 11, 12-year-old group, and they came and sang to me and brought a $1,000 check. It was a bunch of school kids. Might have been vacation, but I don't know. Michelle could tell you the date and time. But that touched me so much. I think it was the singing, but they raised the money. That's what touched me.
Yeah.
You know, and I'd rather get 1,000 from those kids than 1,000 from one individual who just need a tax write-off. But y'all have grand opportunities, and y'all have always. I didn't know that until Michelle told me. You know, so she was proactive, and then with Stephen's background, well, not background, he's chaplain now.
Yeah.
You know, so and this church has a big history of veterans, you know, and honoring them, and kind of like the city on the hill. Yeah. But yeah, very, very strong. We'll bring food by whenever y'all have had a couple of guest speakers in, and I would I'll get offered a scholarship to way because they understand what a nonprofit is. Yeah. I go a whole lot more workshops, but it comes from the same fund.
Yeah.
So but it's been a blessing because we never expect it, but we always get it, and we don't ever have to fight for it. It's a giving heart. Like, what can we do? And it's actually meant. Yeah.
Yeah. Michelle's great at that.
Oh yeah.
So what can
she's the only person I know that can really dress me down, and I smile. Oh yeah, you're right. I am terrible. Yeah. And I appreciate you telling me that.
Yeah, she is a great person who can give an honest message.
Yeah.
So what can First Methodist do to continue to support Woody's house?
Always pray for us. Visit.
Okay.
And I've had the opportunity probably 4, 5, 6 times over the years to speak to certain classes. I think they run out of speakers and they say, call Doc, he'll show up anywhere, you know. and that's some of those groups have gotten involved. But I like to stay in front of your members. I'd like for your members to press the flesh with some of the guys.
Yeah.
And maybe adopt them. The 4th Sunday of every month, you bring them donuts. I mean, just interaction. That means so much to them, especially the ones that don't have family or have been neglected or abused, you know, by the family.
Yeah. So you think that personal interaction and like having someone connect with them is what means the most?
And that's what's in our mission statement, you know, is to honor and respect and provide a safe environment. Yeah. That's pretty simple. But you would think you wouldn't even have to request that. That'd be just human nature, but it's not necessarily so anymore.
Yeah. Well, definitely giving us a lot to think about, giving us the things we can do to help. So definitely appreciate what you're doing, Doc.
Thank you for having me and taking a chance.
It was not a mistaken chance for sure. Definitely appreciate you.
Okay.
And so guys, we'll see y'all next time.